Welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to start by just imagining something with me. Picture yourself standing on this really long, kind of misty road of learning.
Oh, I like that visual, like a path we're all on.
Yeah, exactly. And, everyone around you on this road is walking super briskly.
Mhm.
And they're all carrying these massive, heavy sacks on their backs.
Right. And what's in the sacks?
Well, they're filled with, like, facts and formulas and diplomas. Because we treat learning as this act of collecting. Right? We treat knowledge like it's literal cargo that we just have to hoard.
We really do. I mean, it's the default mode of modern society. We just stockpile information.
Exactly. But what if the real journey isn't actually about what you carry? What if it's about how you see? Like, what if knowledge isn't cargo at all, but light, a light that completely transforms the landscape you're walking through?
That is a profound shift in perspective. And, as a Gestalt psychologist, this is really the core of what I study. The fundamental premise here is that true study, like genuine learning, it doesn't just add to you, it reconfigures you.
Reconfigures you. I love that word.
Yeah, because the central insight of Gestalt theory is that we don't experience the world as just, a chaotic pile of isolated data points. We experience meaningful configurations. We experience wholes.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if learning isn't just filing away data points, that completely changes how we experience reality. But I need to understand the mechanics first. How does this whole process actually work with attention?
Well, to understand how learning reconfigures us, we first have to look at the anatomy of attention, specifically the dance between what we call figure and ground.
Figure and ground. Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So most conventional education treats knowledge as this inert background noise. That's the ground. It's just a dusty warehouse of filed away facts.
Right, like memorizing capitals of countries.
Exactly. But genuine learning happens when a piece of that information suddenly steps forward out of the blur and becomes this vivid, urgent figure. And when it does, the whole becomes something other than the sum of its parts. Not necessarily greater, but other.
Wait, what does it mean for a whole to be other than its parts?
Think about a piece of music. Right, a melody isn't just a list of C, E, and G notes.
Oh, sure.
If I just read those notes to you, it's just data. But when they're configured together, a melody emerges. Or think about a human face. A face isn't just, a nose and two eyes and a mouth.
Right, because if you just list those features to me, I don't feel anything. But when I see my friend smiling, I'm not looking at the geometry of their face. The warmth is the figure that just sort of emerges.
Precisely. Now let's apply that to learning. Imagine a student who is just floating in a sea of historical dates. 1914, 1916, it's all pure background noise.
Yeah, totally abstract.
But then they read a single handwritten letter from a 19-year-old soldier in the trenches in 1916. And he's describing the sound of the rain hitting the mud, wondering if he'll ever see his kitchen again.
Wow. Yeah, that completely changes it.
Suddenly, history isn't a timeline. It becomes a human ache in their bloodstream. The fact steps out of the background and becomes a figure.
Or another example, like a math student who is bored to death by algebra, but then they look at the crashing ocean waves and suddenly they see a sine curve in the water.
Exactly. Algebra suddenly becomes poetry. The whole configuration changes.
Talking about it being in your bloodstream, it makes me think about this visceral realization I had recently.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Well, we all know the concept that time is irreversible, right? You hear it, you nod. But a few weeks ago, I was standing alone in my kitchen, and I was just watching the steam rise from my cup of coffee. And out of nowhere, I was hit by this massive realization that this exact configuration of reality, like the light on the counter, the hum of the fridge, my own breath, it would never, ever return. I literally felt the irreversibility of time in my chest.
What's fascinating here is you didn't learn a new fact in that kitchen.
No, the fact was always there.
Right. But it didn't just teach you something new, it changed your relationship to existence. The concept moved from the background and became an urgent figure.
But why does that happen? Like, how does a piece of knowledge step out of the background like that? Why did I feel that in my kitchen, but not when I was reading a physics textbook?
It all comes down to tension. In Gestalt theory, we have this concept called pregnance.
Pregnance, okay, what is that?
It essentially refers to the organism's drive for completion or closure. You see, attention isn't a spotlight you just force on things. Like, you don't have to force yourself to notice a fire in a dark room.
Right, you just immediately see it.
Because it disrupts the equilibrium. Deep learning happens when material connects to an unfinished gestalt within the learner.
Wait, an unfinished gestalt, you mean like Unresolved baggage?
Basically, yeah. Unprocessed grief or, the quiet suspicion that your life is following someone else's script. When external information hits one of those internal tensions, insight happens.
So insight isn't just logically deducing something.
Not at all. Insight is reorganization. Let me give you a classic example. Kohler's chimpanzee, Sultan.
Okay, tell me about Sultan.
So Sultan is sitting in an enclosure, and there's a banana outside the bars, just out of reach. Inside with him, he has two bamboo sticks. One is hollow at the end, and the other is slightly thinner.
But neither stick is long enough on its own.
Exactly. So Sultan tries reaching, he gets frustrated, no new data is introduced. But suddenly, he fits the two sticks together to make a longer stick and gets the banana.
Just out of nowhere.
Yes. Because everything changed when the existing field was structurally rearranged. The tension of his hunger drove his mind to achieve closure.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If insight is just reorganizing what's already there to resolve tension, does that mean when I read someone like Nietzsche, I'm not really trying to memorize his quotes, I'm just reading him because his words resonate with my own unspoken internal rebellions?
That is exactly it. You aren't downloading Nietzsche. You are using him to complete your own unfinished Gestalt. It's a cycle of perceptual learning that has 4 stages.
Okay, what are the stages?
First is background noise. The data is there, but it's meaningless. Second is disturbance, or tension. That's the fire in the darkroom.
Right, the feeling that something is off or missing.
Yes. Third is incubation. This is when the mind stops forcing it and just works on the problem subconsciously. And finally, insight. The pieces click together.
And when they click, it's not just a mental thing, right? Because when I had that kitchen moment, it literally shifted my physical reality. My breathing slowed down.
Yes. We call that isomorphism. It's the structural correspondence between conscious experience and the nervous system.
So my mind and my body are mapping onto each other.
Exactly. When you truly grasp a concept like impermanence, not as a doctrine, but as a lived reality, your posture softens. The insight is somatic. The knowledge actually enters the field and physically rearranges your organism.
So what does this all mean for us day to day? Because honestly, if having an insight requires sitting with that uncomfortable tension, most people don't want to do that. We naturally flee the discomfort of the unresolved.
We absolutely do.
Like if I see a profound question online, I just want someone to summarize it into 3 neat bullet points so I can move on.
Right, but the antidote to that rushing is what the poet John Keats called negative capability.
Negative capability.
It's the ability to dwell in the liminal space between confusion and clarity without grasping after absolute facts.
Yeah.
True learning requires that.
But that liminal space is awful.
It is. Think about reading Dostoevsky. You read it and you feel completely morally destabilized. Or if you study quantum physics, it completely unsettles your classical worldview of how reality works.
Yeah, you feel unmoored.
But that discomfort isn't a bug. It's the feature indicating that growth is happening.
Wow. Okay, but if we actually sit with that discomfort and we allow the knowledge to really get in, what's the end result? Because honestly, it sounds deeply unsettling. It almost feels like loss.
It is loss. And this is the core paradox of all of this. The deepest knowledge doesn't expand yourself. It dissolves it.
Wait, dissolves it. But learning is supposed to build me up. Like learning is armor to signal my competence. Look at me, I am well-read.
And that is exactly the trap. True inner growth is the willingness to be undone by what you learn, to integrate a new gestalt, the old one. Your map of reality, your sense of safety, it has to dissolve.
So imagine an ethics student. They can perfectly cite Aristotle, Kant, Mill. They have all the armor.
Right, they have the vocabulary.
But then they go out and they witness real injustice, like a friend is betrayed or a vulnerable system completely fails someone. Suddenly all those academic theories just collapse into silence.
Exactly.
What arises isn't an argument anymore. It's this trembling responsibility. The knowledge stripped them of the illusion that having the answers was enough.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the mature mind tolerates open gestalts. It understands that some questions are portals to inhabit, not problems to solve.
Portals to inhabit. I love that.
The more you learn, the more you realize how much you do not see.
Okay, so where does this ultimately lead us? If the self is dissolving, what's left?
Well, the ultimate isomorphism is making the I more transparent.
Making the I transparent.
Yes. When the boundary between the knower and the known blurs, learning becomes communion. You feel a historical injustice as an echo in your own bones. or ecological collapse as a rupture in your own continuity. You are no longer the learner, you are the learning.
That is incredible. For anyone listening to this right now, the next time you open a book or sit with a difficult idea, stop asking, what will I gain?
Right.
Start asking, what am I willing to lose? Like, let the knowledge hollow you out a bit. Make space for wonder, for doubt, and for the sheer beauty of just not knowing.
It's the only way to truly see the light.
Exactly. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Imagine yourself not as a finished collection of facts, but as a living, breathing question. If your path of learning has no end destination, only death, how does that change the very next step you take today?